Hi everyone, this is Integration Talks, the only podcast dedicated to software integration and integration experts. It is hosted by Francis Martins from Xray, the most powerful integration app. Let's get started.
So welcome to the new episode of Integration Talk. Today we have Tom Nassr. I hope I'm saying calling in from Connecticut, right?
Connecticut, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So, hey, Tom, tell me a bit about yourself.
Sure. My name is Tom Nassr. I am the co-founder and CEO of a company called Xray Tech, a software automation and consulting company.
Mm-hmm.
My background is in philosophy, so we like to say that we're bringing the humanity a little bit back to the human workflow that comes into all the software, knowledge workers these days. So we run a fractional chief automation officer service. So we end up plugging and playing on hundreds of different softwares all over the place, and just helping people really make sense out of their workflow.
Okay, so can you repeat the name of the service that you provide?
Sure, it's called Xray. Well, the company is called Xray.tech, and the service is Fractional Chief Automation Officer service. So we blend really what a COO would do, a Chief Operations Officer, and a CTO, right, a Chief Technology Officer, and we really blend that into a CAO, right? A chief automation officer. That's really whole job is to just design the way that people do work.
Can you, that's something new that I didn't hear about. Could you provide an example of a day of a CAO?
Sure. Yeah. So you can think of like your most bottlenecked employees, right? Someone who's doing sales, or someone who's doing marketing or onboarding, right? There's tons of people that are running around with their hair on fire every day. But what a CAO would do is interview that person, understand what that person is doing, and understand what that person is trying to create, trying to output. And then they would look at the software that they're using to create that output and basically connect the tools together, right? If you're in Google Docs for one thing and you're in Salesforce for another and you're outputting an email, right? Understanding how all those different softwares connect and being able to streamline that for the person who's stuck in the middle.
All right, so you try to take out the day-to-day routines from people and make it so that really like it just runs, and then you can focus on the new things.
Yeah, we break it up exactly right, and we break it up into two categories, right? Robotic work and then something that we call CAST work: creative, analytical, strategic, and thoughtful. Okay, right? CAST work is meant for people like you, right? Humans. If it's creative, analytical, strategic, and thoughtful, then it's worthy of your attention. If it's repetitive and it's mundane and it's copy and paste work, it's not, right? You should let the robots, let the automations do those types of things, because it's going to output a higher quality. It's going to be better and easier for the people inside your organization to keep up with.
Yeah, more predictable, right? So you do know what the system is going to provide, and so you're calling it a fractional CAO. So why fractional?
Well, it's a pretty big expense, right? If you were to hire a C-level executive, depending on the size of company you're at, right? We typically help companies with 50 or more employees doing 10 million or more in revenue. Because that's where you really start to see the benefits of automation in a workforce. So if you're looking at hiring a C-level executive at that size and scale of a company, you're talking about, right, $250,000 all in compensation package with everything else, right? It's a lot to take on. So we're a monthly subscription service, right? A membership service that allows a company to come in 90 days, automate my systems for this, right? And we'll come in, we'll interview all the people, we'll document everything, we'll build the automations, and then actually facilitate training for the people who are now conducting this workflow, and for the new people that you hire that are going to be conducting this workflow, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Really to make it as transparent as humanly possible.
Right. So that's interesting. So is there particular technologies that you use to implement this, or is it like more depending on the type of automation work that you need to do?
Yeah, I mean, typically it's the tools that they are already using.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the just, it's the really funny part about doing this type of work is people pay and organizations pay tens of thousands of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars a year for software.
Yeah,
that takes a lot of human work to maintain the software.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And now you have to pay people to maintain the software that you're paying for. And it just becomes a really runaway expense when it gets to the point of, well, you can't actually facilitate the value generating business without XYZ software, XYZ type of person. So the first thing we do is just understand the tools of the organization. What are people using today? Are there any gaps? Are you looking for new software? Is there a particular reason you don't like it or whatever, right? And then really simply, it's just connecting those tools together.
Okay.
So we could use low-code systems like an Integromat or a Zapier or even your tool, right? You could use that and connect the existing software together to create an integration. But this is a little nuanced when we get between what's an integration versus a workflow.
Yeah, that was the question coming.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And this is a massively important aspect of really this type of work. And I think that what people are trying to get integrations to be, right, is an integration is just going to connect two tools, right? Every time I get an email, put it in a spreadsheet. Sure, right? If that's what you want to do, great. But that's going to be an integration, right? Connecting two tools together. A workflow actually begins with the output, right? What are we trying to output from this entire workflow? And if it's a closed won, my new deal, if it's right sending an engagement report to my customers, right? Whatever that thing is that I'm outputting, there's a million steps before that. Right. Yeah. Where my software absolutely needs to talk to each other. And I also need to understand the context, and I need to know where I begin, and I need to know what are the raw materials I need to assemble to be able to do the work, right? To be able to construct this type of report or whatever, to be able to send it out. So the workflow is much more encapsulating to what the person needs to do. And it's you can think of it from that perspective is a workflow is focused on the person and the integration is focused on the software.
Okay. So the way that we position the both, because our tool is more integration oriented.
Yeah.
And Zapier or this type of tools are more automation. Is that with an integration, you just want to connect two systems, and then everything should flow easily from one side to another side, independently from the semantics of exactly. While with automation, you have to take into account the semantics of the real workflow that the human needs to follow. That's what I understand.
Yeah. Absolutely. And the definitions of these terms and it's so nuanced when you get into the weeds, right? On whether or not I want everything to be identical, right? I want that synchronization between these two tools, or I want one directional movement of data. But ultimately, it comes down to what is the person trying to do? What is the output? What means success in their job role, right? And then how do you move that job role to be more streamlined in how they create that success?
All right. Now, really interesting. And are the applications or the workflows that you implement at Xray like within one company, or do you have also cases where you have multiple companies involved?
That's a great question. So sometimes I'd say 90% of the time it's inside the company, right? We're trying to create a higher quality output faster with the same level of resources that we have, right? That's the pattern that gets repeated again and again. Sometimes though, we end up getting challenges that focus on, well, what about their customers, right? How do we give their customers access or certain access to certain processes that can like create a feedback loop inside of the company, right? So like an agency is a really good example where an agency has customers, those customers have feedback, the agency needs to adapt to that feedback and then re-deliver something to the customer. So we end up getting roped into some of those conversations where we need to figure out really how do we create this process in a way that supports the creative or supports the, customer success team or whatever, because all of those take a different shape in different organizations.
Yeah, right. So isn't that a bit of a challenge to collect all the right requirements and the information that needs to be exchanged in all cases? Or how do you do that? How do you ensure that this workflow is complete?
Well, workflow complete is a really clearly defined place to get, but a lot of times people don't have it written down.
No.
So the object there, this is like, I might get soapboxy here for a minute, but like that's the thing. Like the workflow isn't in an object form, right? You can back up your code to GitHub. You can't back up your process to something, right? It's in here, right? It's between everybody's ears, and they think they do it the same way every time. Exactly. But in a lot of scenarios, there is a tremendous amount of variability that people are naturally adapting to, because that's the human thing, right? You know what you need to output. So there's little fragments of consistencies inside of that process, but the lion's share of what people are doing is inconsistent. It is creating a new way every time, but getting generically the same output, right? More or less. Yeah. So that's why we structure the service to be a membership instead of all right, we need to do 3 weeks of requirements building, and then we're going to write everything down and pretend that that's correct. And then we're going to, build this huge thing and then tell you it's done when it's done. Like, we're not SAP.
And then it's in production and then it doesn't work, right?
Yeah, it never will, because that's not the way that people work, right? Like our service is designed to amplify people. And that's what workflow design should be, right? To amplify the person, not just check boxes on a to-do list, because that's not what a person like actually is doing. No. There's so much more going on under the surface.
So how does that go? So I got a company. I got like customer success. I got sales. I got engineering, support. All the different aspects. And what do you do? So you come in, you implement the first workflow.
Who's drowning? That's my first question. Who's drowning?
Who's drowning?
Yeah. Who is struggling to keep up?
Okay. In this case, assume customer success.
Yeah. Customer success. Okay. Well, we go into customer success. Let's talk to the head of customer success, right? Interviewing them around what are their pain points right now in their job? What tools are they using to try to create that output? And what information do they need to assemble before they can even do their job, right? It's remarkable. Knowledge workers, we do 3 things at work. We assemble work to be done, we do the work, and then we tell people about the work that we did. That's all we do. If you work on the internet, those are the 3 things.
It's a bit of a simplification. Right? Okay, all right. Okay,
that's it, right? So how do those raw inputs get curated? Who is doing that, or how is that being done? That let me do my work, right? And then how do I pass this off, right? This ticket is done, right? This job is closed won, right? Whatever it is. How do I pass this off? And it's those three things that just repeat and repeat and repeat. And it's a different shape and size and color in every organization. Right? Yeah. You have different tools, but ultimately it comes down to the people that are doing it, because they know, right? Your head of customer success knows I'm underwater and this is why. That might not be the solution, right? But that's at least the result of what would be, could be fixed.
So you guys, you come in, you get this interview, and you make like a proposition, or do you do like an implementation?
We build it together. So we come up, so we meet weekly with our members, and have process owners talk to us about the process that they're conducting.
Okay.
And we'll iterate and build and prototype different things that could work, right? And we'll deploy it in a prototype, standpoint. And then as soon as it gets approval, there's the whole documentation, training, and what we call process pages aspect to it. So then we really take a process from, in my head to a prototype workflow to a production level workflow that is fully documented and can be hand off to somebody who is new to the company, right? Like I one of our members, right? We could pull up an Xray Studio board for them right now and show you a process page, and you would know, oh, this is when I do it. This is how I do it. This is other stuff I should know. This is the flow diagram, moving this data around. Like it's made for anybody to be able to come in and understand what's happening.
Okay, so if I understand it well, you do have like a kind of Xray tool, which helps documenting the processes, which can be used by your customers as a kind of knowledge base.
Yeah, we use it as so the tool that I was referring to there is called Xray.studio. We have two tools, Xray.tools, which is an automation search engine, and then Xray.studio, which is really a project delivery platform. Okay. So you can think of Xray Studio a lot less of a tool and a lot more as a belt. So, we use Notion, we use Google Drive, we use Airtable, we use all these different tools, but everybody uses all these different tools. And I just want a surface to show me what tools and stuff do I use for this particular problem, for this particular workflow or this particular customer. And that's what Xray Studio is a tool agnostic surface that you can associate any link or text or embed or markdown file or webhook or whatever you want into it in a tile format. It's really simple. And that's how we catalog all of the workflows that we build for an organization.
All right. So Xray Studio is more like a wiki.
Well, we would use a wiki. We would use wiki to like associate the document. It's if anything, you could liken it to like a bookmark bar that can do a whole lot of other things. Okay. Right? It's like bookmarks of all the links and the automations and the documents that you need to understand context on a process, but it's also connected to a whole bunch of automations. And does a lot of other things underneath the surface. And
so the other tool was Xray Search.
Xray Tools, Xray.tools.
Tools. Yeah, so that's automation search. You said
search engine. Yeah.
Yeah. So what does it do?
Yeah. If you could, you basically look at your software tools today, right? HubSpot, Zendesk. Whatever your Google Drive, Gmail, Zoom, right? Whatever tools you're using today, and you could enter it into Xray Tools, and it will create a tool belt, right? It'll show you all of those tools that you just added. And then right now we only have 3 platforms integrated, which is Zapier, Integromat, and Workato.
Okay.
Got to add you guys to this list.
Yeah. Of course.
Yeah, we got to add you guys to this list. And you can see the triggers, actions, and searches that are possible on all of those platforms in one place.
Okay.
So if you are a new person, right, in your organization, you're starting to automate, you're beginning your automation journey, right? You're like, oh, which one do I use? And how do I know what it can do, right? this is a really easy way to compare, what your tools can do on all these automation platforms.
Okay. All right. No, I really need to have a look. It sounds interesting because one of the problems you can define your processes as rich, as complete as you want. Mm-hmm. People will never, well, not never, will have a hard time to follow them because people adapt, right, to situations. Right. Yeah. So how do you solve this type of conflict?
Yeah, that's a great point. That the way that we address that specifically is you're able to do that. You're able to sort of change the process mm-hmm. when there are multiple ways to achieve a similar output, right? Okay. One of the ways that we eliminate that is by creating one way to achieve the output. And that one way is usually a form or a survey or a button or a singular point of data entry or data mm-hmm. manipulation. And
like an atomic transaction. Is that right?
I'm not familiar with that term.
No, you know what a transaction is.
Yeah.
And an atomic transaction is a transaction that can happen or not, right?
Yeah. I get. Yeah.
So it's a bit more technical, maybe.
Yeah, no, but it is in nature, right? So it either happens this way or it can't happen. Mm-hmm. So for a really good example is one of the members needs to provision, right, 100,000 users. They're a B2B software company, and every new customer they get, they need to provision all these users on their software product. Mm-hmm. Well, you could get sent an email with a CSV with all of the users. You could get, upload it through SFTP. You could do a whole bunch of other things to do it, right? Well, that was before. Now, right, there's one form. This is the way that you provision new users, and it takes out all the guesswork, right? Okay. There's no other way to do it to create that same output.
Yeah. All right. So if you look at, I'm still interested in that workflow that you have yourself to improve the process, because you said you have a membership mm-hmm. Service. So how does that go? Who are the stakeholders in by the way, I believe this was one of the advisors of one previous podcast is who are the stakeholders? Who mm-hmm. do you bring in to define these processes?
So the first person is the person who's drowning, right? The person who's overworked, right?
Like the head of customer success.
Right. Head of customer success is our first point of contact, our first process owner, and mm-hmm. the first person that we help. From there, maybe we'll build infrastructure that will put, all the people in the organization inside of an Airtable base, we'll just mm-hmm. say, right? Because they're in HR, they care about people. We create an Airtable base of all the people. Well, all those people would also have Slack IDs and email addresses mm-hmm. and names and locations and positions and all, maybe not sensitive data, right? We're not talking salary or any of that stuff, right? But operationally relevant data. So things that, we want to ping this person on Slack with a notification of XY deal just got closed, or they have a new customer, or they have a new ticket coming in from Zendesk, or whatever it is.
Or
right?
like this customer can churn, like there's a risk of churn. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So now that you have that database of people, now you can build on top of it and all these other things. So maybe we'll start with HR and end up in finance mm-hmm. Or end up in marketing, because now the people who are getting pinged with these automatic notifications from HR are like, there's an we have a chief automation officer. I could use some of that stuff. Okay. and then someone else tries to get in on the meeting, and then and it just it evolves from there. And that's how you end up building all of these different, sort of microservice-y operations tools, right? that like facilitate really, really fine-tuned steps inside of an organization that just make people's lives easier.
Yeah. Are you only using cloud technologies, because all the technologies you mentioned are cloud-based, or like a on-premise type of or the big databases like?
There are. So we have encountered some scenarios and needed to build some workarounds for on-premise stuff. But I would say that's few and far between. The vast majority of work that we do is on cloud-based technologies.
Yeah. We do see a clear movement towards the cloud, right?
Naturally.
Now, if you're doing this workflow automation or integrations, can you tell some integrations that are automations that were like technical challenging?
Oh, technically challenging ones.
Yeah.
A lot of things that have to do with time and scheduling is typically on the more technically challenging side. There's just, and it's so circumstantial. I'm trying to abstract a good example, but like some of them are just really, really simple that could get much more complicated. So for example, an NDA or a contract being submitted, right? We've built this a dozen times, right? You have a contract or an NDA, a form you fill out, it fills out a template and it sends it out to get signed. Well, we had a scenario where the legal team wanted to edit the document every single time. They're like, no, we work in Word and we want to send out a Word document every time. And when I get a draft back, I want to edit that draft and I want to re-upload it and have it sent out. It's like, well, the signature is going to move, or like, there's all these little things that make it a little bit more complicated. And we ended up having a really, really fun sort of solution there, which was on the signature line, we were using DocuSign. And on the signature line, you have the ability on DocuSign to do a /S and mark that as a signature field, but you don't want that in the contract. So we made it white text, and it still worked on the document, right? You can't see the /S.
Oh, okay.
But
DocuSign
identifies it to be the signature. So now they could upload a new Word document, whatever. Hey, just don't edit the signature line, right? That's the caveat. But.
All right. Interesting. Yeah. Okay. But you always find some good solutions like this, right?
Yeah. You always have a workaround. Another fun one we implemented internally actually was on Slack, reacting with a person's face emoji to like self-assign tasks on specific projects. So we have every Slack channel is mapped to a Notion project. And then if I say, don't forget to be on the podcast today, react with my own face emoji, it would create a task for me in that project, time-stamped, give it a duration, a to-do, the whole nine. And the teams just had a bunch of fun doing that and in delegating tasks to each other. It's been a really fast way of just capturing tasks, right? Because that's the first challenge there, is making sure that your to-do list is actually accurate.
Yeah. Well, that's a whole other topic we could dive into. But you were like talking about Airtable to contain like usernames, passwords, not passwords.
Certainly not passwords. Yeah.
No, but I mean like addresses. Is security concern? Is it something that people come up with whenever you propose something?
Certainly, yeah. Security is definitely a concern. We actually have a very robust security process around like access and being granted access, password management, and as we create new tools and new accounts and all this stuff, like that is definitely a precaution. The data that is in Airtable or any other source typically is data that's operationally relevant and generally pretty benign, right? So knowing that there's 10 people in a marketing department and these are their Slack IDs, you couldn't do much with that information. But on the other side, in Airtable specifically, we have an enterprise Airtable account that we provide for all of our members. So that comes with its own, upgraded security and privacy from Airtable. So
yeah, of course, yeah. Oh, interesting. So I learned some new terms like the Chief Automation Officer. I certainly will have a look at Xray Studio and Xray Tools. So if you would like, if you have a team of people that are going to start with integrating or doing workflow automation, what type of advice would you give them?
Everyone's at a different stage, right, of their process maturity. I would say the first place to start is in actually trying to diagram out what happens today, right? It's really hard to create this theoretical, this is what I want it to do world if you don't actually know what happens in the organization right now.
Yeah, right.
So understanding the way that people, the software, and the processes that you have already been performing actually relate to each other and actually produce an output. We use a tool called Lucid Chart, which is very, very good. It's enormously popular. Have a flowcharting tool like that. And just ask yourself the question, right, at this stage in the process, who is doing it and what tools are they using? Who is doing it and what tools, right? And you can sort of methodically get to whatever output you're creating. But flow diagramming is the absolute first step I would recommend, because it makes you ask the questions, how does this get done, without actually needing to spend any money or learn anything new, right? All you're doing is just trying to press your mind into this flow diagram.
Yeah. It's like
it's something that everyone can do.
Yeah, right. So you start there, and then you start to build from there, right?
Yeah.
So and the people who would be in such a session, is that the whole team, or is it just the head of customer service?
It would be interesting, especially let's say you're the head of a department, do it yourself, right? And maybe ask 2 or 3 of your top people, hey, you do it too, independently.
Yeah.
Right. And compare notes. Yeah. Right. Because that's just going to show you the variability that's already in your process that you don't even know about. And that's a huge component of workflow design and workflow automation, is in creating that consistency. You really don't know how bad it is currently until you have a really good process, and then you can say, oh, I actually trust this data, right? Okay. I actually know what this output is. So start with flow diagramming and give your team, a little bit of homework to try to do it themselves.
Tom, thank you again for your insights. I learned a lot, and hopefully our audience also.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate being on the show, and I'm excited to see where this goes. Thank you very much. I hope everybody enjoyed the talk.
All right, Tom. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning into Xrayl's podcast, Integration Talks, a podcast that covers all things integration. For more information, check out our resources on xray.com and stay tuned for our upcoming episodes. Until next time.